talk about young shakes. Chicago 2 representatives, Jesse James. And this is for my city.
Hey, I do it for my city. Dog, I don't plan on going down. If he think I'm going down, then he gon' first round. For my city, dog, I ain't never.
Hello, this is Lacy L. Rice Jr. of Rice Fame Group, welcoming you to Chat with HBCU Champions, Season 2, Episode 16, featuring Head Coach Ritchie Beane from Alabama State University, whose men track and field team won the 2023 SWAC Championship. Congratulations, Coach, and welcome to the show.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. First thing we would like to do is to find out more about you. So please tell us about yourself, including your coaching experience.
Okay, well, again, I say my name is Coach Beane, head men and women track and field coach here at Alabama State University. I just completed, I think, either year 25 or 26 here at Alabama State University. Alabama State has been amazing to me and my family over the years. I'm very thankful and grateful to be able to serve as the head coach here. Just a little bit about my background. I graduated from Alcorn State University, where I majored in elementary education, got my master's at health and physical education at Alabama State University, came over as a graduate assistant, worked my way up to an assistant coach, and then when my mentor and former head coach Horace Crump retired, I was blessed to become the next head coach of Alabama State University. Man, this university and this program has given me more than I ever could have dreamed of. Being blessed to win a total of 58 SWAC Championships, multiple individual champions, NCAA All-Americans, second team All-Americans, SWAC champions, both men, women. It's been amazing. There's countless amounts of accolades that these coaches and athletes have accomplished here. And one of the greatest things is they're getting degrees in the process of that, and the coaches are being able to be blessed to move on either as head coaches and move on to other jobs in Power 5 or either at other institutions. So that's a blessing within itself.
Oh, wow. That's great. That's great. And it's always great to hear, coaches talk about their athletes and their staff and, the things that they've accomplished along the way, especially for HBCUs, considering that our HBCUs don't get the pub that the other schools get. So that's terrific to hear. And along those lines, please tell us more about your team. Who were your key athletes and some of their accomplishments this year?
Well, man, that's another interview with all of it within itself, because we had so many athletes who did an outstanding job from the conference level, regional level, and then, the staff that I have is amazing. But just to highlight a few of the athletes and just to backtrack a little bit, our women team and men team won the indoor title this year, and then they came back and the men won the outdoor title. I think the women might have finished third overall. But when we say we got some athletes that's really doing well, I'll highlight them on the men's side. We got Matthew Clark, Victor Smith. We had some freshman guys in the 400 Quan Tate who did an amazing job. We had a young man, a couple of JUCO transfers. As I said a second ago, Victor Smith, Kendrick Winfield, Kabiba Mills. Those are some of those guys that ran on that 4x1 and 4x4. Justin Smith, who was a all-SWAC performer in 102, and was third leg of the relay. And this kid was a walk-on and worked his way up to being a scholarship. And, I have to give credit where credit is due. My assistant coaches are doing an amazing job. They said when I was an assistant coach, I was a great assistant, and the head coach was really good. Now I'm a good head coach with really great assistants, because those guys go out there I'm a blessed to in a situation where I can allow them to do our job. Coach Maury Turner, Coach Michael Snap, these guys really get after it. Coach Turner, second year in the program, come out of Coffeyville Community College, having done an exceptional job with the sprints. And we had a vision with the program when he came in that what is happening now, that was a part of the vision to take our men team and our women team to higher heights. And so that's a product of the vision. And so right now they're actually up in Eugene, Oregon. We have one young man who will be competing in the USA Toyota meet this weekend in Eugene, and we have a freshman that's being coached by Coach Michael Snap that'll be running the 110 hurdles and the 400 hurdles. And we also have a young man that's competing for the Bahamas in a meet as well, who just finished up fourth overall in San Salvador. So we're super excited about that, and we're just looking for an even brighter future.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm going to switch things up a little bit since we did not get to really talk to you after the indoor season, and you did win those championships. Go ahead and talk more about your indoor season as well.
Well, the indoor season was man, it was interesting because we knew we had some really good athletes. I'm one of those people, one of those coaches where we look at where we should be at the beginning of the year, what the expectation by the time we get through conference, and actually leading into the conference championships based off the stats and stuff that we had. Our men team were looking to finish either second or third, and our women team was third with a huge gap to cover to try to win. Me and my staff sat down and we kind of looked at some things maybe 2 weeks out, and we figured if we made some adjustments, we had a shot at it. And we needed a little bit of luck, which we got. When the track started tracking, you never know what happens. And at championship time, all the stats and stuff are out of the window. It's about who's prepared on those couple of days and who make the less mistakes. There were some other teams that made some mistakes, and we were able to capitalize off of it. And also the coaches and myself did an amazing job preparing our student athletes to be prepared to run their best on that day. And that's what was able to happen. The women end up winning. We made some adjustments in some key areas that proved to put us over the hump. And the guys, they just went out and gave their best meet. And it came down, what's crazy is the pole vault. Everything was over with, and the pole vault was still going on. And we had a freshman who needed to finish in, I think, either top 4 or top 5 in order for us to be able to win the championship. And on that particular vault that would put him in like fourth place, it's like time froze when he was in the air. And so even my form was good because as he was vaulting, I was vaulting with him, and I'm rearing back. And when he cleared that bar and went over the mat, knowing that we secured that championship, and that was a lot of pressure on a freshman, but Coach Snap did an excellent job with him and keeping him calm and cool under pressure. And he stepped up big time because it's not often when the meet come down to the pole vault. Sometimes they come down with the 4x4, but the 4x4 had ended. With Jackson State, something happened with the 4x4, and I think they had maybe got disqualified. But Mark had his troop really prepared, and the pendulum swung our way, and it came down to the pole vault, and they was crowned champions. So that doesn't happen often.
Right. Yeah. Definitely not. Having to run out the pole vault. But like you said, the 4x4 is usually that event. If everything is tight, then the 4x4 usually decides who wins. So that's exciting, and I can just imagine the pole vault is definitely one of the most difficult events in track and field, and it's probably the most dangerous event in track and field outside of throws. And so,
Right.
you know, that's amazing for a freshman to come in and help secure that win for you. And congratulations to him.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So, wow. So tell us a bit on the indoor side. How are the entries? Is it, do they just allow you to enter a certain amount of athletes, or do your athletes have to meet a qualifying time, or how does that work?
So basically, you're allowed up to so many athletes per event, and then there's a standard. Once that amount of athletes are entered in that event, that athlete and everybody else has to hit in order for those to be able to compete in those events. I think it's you get up to maybe four, and then anything additional past that, there's a certain standard or time or jump or mark they have to make in order to get those other athletes. So it helps with people loading the event, but if you got the quality, you're able to get those athletes in, because I've always felt that if you have the quality, every athlete that has that time or meet that standard should be able to contest for a point for the team or score or be able to compete in that event if they want to do.
Okay, okay. And does your conference? I'm imagining your conference does the eight place scoring versus six.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, we do.
Okay. So that like I said, that's great. You have three championships this year, and you know that's a heck of an accomplishment for any program. So congratulations once again to you and
Thank
your
you.
staff for the great job that you did.
It doesn't come easy.
All right, right. And so, well, tell us more about your conference and the competition that you faced this year. You know, throughout the entire year for indoor and outdoor.
Well, our conference, the Southwest Athletic Conference, we have a great leadership at the top from our commissioner, who does an excellent job and has a vision for where he wants to take the conference, where he wants to take track and field. The thing that I do like about our commissioner and his staff is that they have we have an ear of what it is that we want, and he asks, you know, how can we improve our conference and how can we improve our visibility in track and field, and he takes those recommendations, and he want us to not only be successful at a conference level, they want us to be successful at an NCAA and regional level. And we have some tremendous coaches in our conference. Different schools have made some great hires throughout the conference. Alabama A&M just recently, maybe a year or two ago, hired a new coach that was served as an assistant in the MEAC. He's going to do a tremendous job up there. Florida A&M just hired a new head coach in the fall. It's one of my former assistants. He's going to do an amazing job. He's an outstanding coach. Texas Southern has a head coach that's been on the block for a very long time. But when I say he has some strong young kings assisting him with his program that's putting student athletes in NCAA regionals and the nationals. Prairie View has a historical program where they are consistently performing well at the top of the conference and sitting student athletes on both men and women's side to the NCAA regionals. And Alcorn just hired another coach, and I know he's going to do very well there. And you know, we've been blessed to have some success here. Jackson State with Coach Mark Thorne down there, man, he does an exceptional job. Arkansas, Pine Bluff, Bethune-Cookman all have athletes that just shine throughout the conference and the regional level. So our conference is not a walk in the park. When you go back and you look at some of the times, you know, you got to be ready to run by the time you get to the conference championship. The SWAC record this year with 10-10. Oh, that was a winning time, 20.4. Was a winning time too. You know, 39 point something, 1 to 4 by 1. So you have to be ready to run if you're going to make that top three in the finals of the conference. So, and it's not going to get any easier. The schools I just named, they're out there recruiting hard because the standard of the conference has been set. And when we've been blessed to be as successful as we are, everybody wants a piece of that success, either in the conference, regionals, or nationals, or all three. Every AD want their athletes to compete at a certain level. And I know the coaches that's in our conference, they are high quality coaches. My assistants are high producing coaches, and people see that. And that's why people are attracted to our coaches and athletes in the conference, and they want to know what we're doing, how we're taking athletes that they missed, and we're showing up at regionals and nationals and competing with them. And so now they're looking at that, they're asking questions, and they're also searching it out to see what can they get.
Well, and track and field is not an exact science, because I mean, you never know while you're recruiting if an athlete has peaked during high school or not, and and then also how well they take to your training regimen. Having been there, I've seen it, quite a few times. Athletes ran their best times in high school, and nobody could figure out why they couldn't get more out of these athletes, and it's just one of those things.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, it's it's knowing what you know, and being able to make good evaluation. There are several different questions that we ask recruits in the process. Every coach have their way of recruiting and bringing athletes in. It's not often where we get a tier one athlete that's at the top. Normally we get athletes where either people have looked over, or we see something, or through a phone evaluation or a visual evaluation, like, you know what? It may be that athlete that we may see on film that finished fourth or fifth in that heat, and we get on the phone and we ask a couple of questions, and it's like, oh, now I see. It may be, hey, we didn't have a track at our school, or this is just my second year running. And I'm like, so, okay, you just getting started with this. So let's have some fun, and let's take a shot at it. So it's been unique. I give you an example. There was a young lady in the 800 that transferred here as a walk-on, maybe a 59 quarter miler. She was nobody really knew much about her. She maybe was a 221 her freshman year in college, and came here as a walk-on. And when we started indoor, she ran her first indoor meet around 221 and 223 in the 800, and ended up running 210. In 6 months, she was 13 minutes faster. But the first day I watched her train, she passed out. But I saw something. I was like, this girl's gonna be good. She just hadn't been coached yet. And so those are some of the things. And even my sprint coach and my multis coach, man, when I say they take young people, that I'm amazed how they turn their times and throws or jumps. It's simply amazing, because they do an excellent job in evaluating talent and taking that evaluation and flipping it into something special. It's nothing like it.
Okay, all right. Well, tell us more about your postseasons for indoor and for outdoor.
Well, I'll kind of dive into outdoor. We didn't have anybody postseasons for indoors, and that's one of the things that we've been working on the U.S. Track and Field Coaches Committee is trying to get an indoor regional. That's straight national. Our indoor NCAA Division I championship is one of the hardest championships in NCAA to make, because only 16 people represent the entire Division I population in all sports at that championship. But NCAA outdoors, we had athletes to qualify in the 400 We had athletes qualify in the 200, in the 100, 4x4, and 4x1. We were one of only few schools in Division I to have local relays to advance to the national championship with 2 relays. We were the only, I think, and God forgive me if I'm wrong, we were the only HBCU to advance 2 teams in the to the relays to the national championship. And man, that experience was amazing. Down at regional in Jacksonville, Florida. Anybody that competed in that meet, Jacksonville, Florida is normally hot in May. We needed jackets and raincoats and rain shoes this particular year. I mean, it was cold for that time of the year in Jacksonville, Florida in May. So, you know, you had to be prepared and had to make some serious adjustments to what you were doing on the relays based off the wind. If you go back and you look at the 100 and some of the 200s, those guys and girls down there running with a monsoon behind them on the last day. And so the relays, like the 4x4, I mean, it was a headwind so strong coming through that backstretch, and you had to make adjustments. Even your 4x1s, you had to make adjustments just to be able to get out. My assistant coach, Coach T, I call him the professor. And I was like, Professor, what are we going to do? I said, because this wind, we got to make these adjustments. And we talked about it. He made the necessary adjustments, and both teams advanced out, and super excited. And we knew if we could get that 4x1 to the national championship, they were going to do something special. And they got there. They was a part of the semifinal round. And ran in that semifinal round down in Texas. And Austin, Texas was one of the fastest semi-rounds in NCAA history. Our guys ended up running 38.5. And I hope I'm correct when I said this is probably one of like the top 20 fastest times ever ran in a 4x1 in NCAA Division I championship history. So that's something special that these young men can take with them forever. And then, of course, they finished overall in the finals, finishing first team All-American. And that was the first time in school history that we've had a relay team that finished first team All-American. We've had some second team All-Americans in relays and honorable mention in relays, but to finish in the top 5 in the country on national TV was big for them, big for the coaching staff, big for Coach T and big for Alabama State University.
Okay. All right. So the way that the NCAAs are set up now, if you make it out of regions to semifinals and finals, you're pretty much an All-American. Is that correct?
Well, yes. Well, you can see, yes, there's a honorable mention, there's second team, and then there's first team. You know, and you know, people have different opinions about qualifying and making it to the national championship. There's different opinions and coaches. Some people feel like, well, if you don't finish in the top 9 or the top 8, there shouldn't be mention of a second team All-American. And I differ from that. If you finish in the top 16, or if you made it to the national championship, there's a lot of people sitting at home who wish they could have made it. I've never seen anybody discredit a team for making it to the Sweet 16 or the Elite 8 or making it to the dance, you know, because that is what you want to do. That's what you compete for. That means a lot of people signed up for those events. And for you to be in that top 24 to get there, and you make it into that top 16 and that top 8 and doing that, you know, and when you look at any other sports in this country, coaches get raises, coaches get jobs. If they finish in the top 20 in the country, or they have athletes to do certain things. So I like giving our coaches and student athletes what their due credit with justice due, because there's a lot of people who wanted to be where you were. This time last year, we were sitting at home watching the national championship on TV, eating popcorn. And so to be there and to do that was another milestone in Alabama State track and field history because anytime you can make it to the national championship, and I don't second guess or downplay NCAA regionals because only 48 get to go. You know how many people competed in the 100 over the course of an outdoor season, and only 48 of those people get to go represent there, and then the next 12 from that get to go on to the national championship. That means you were one of the top 12 best people in the East region because the United States is split in half, and only 12 people out of the East, 12 people out of the West, and you get to go settle up at the national championship. And coaches, university, and whomever should be commended for that because the way I see it in my eyes, if it wasn't something special, everybody would be there. So I give the accolade to the coaches and athletes who finish top 16 and top 8 in the nation. So kudos to them.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, I guess maybe some people don't realize what it used to be or how it used to be. I'm friends with a lot of former national champions and All-Americans from the 60s and 80s. I'm sorry, the 60s and 70s.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, from talking to them, at one point, only the top 6 got All-American. And then if you were from another country, and even if you won, and you were from another country, you were not All-American because you weren't American.
Mm-hmm.
So we,
it's brutal.
took a long.
It's brutal. And sometimes people are like, man, they won SWAC these many times, or some people would go on and say, man, well, you know what, the SWAC not that strong, or we have a tendency in the world, we're a downplay success of other people, and I'm not saying that's directed toward us, but I celebrate everybody's success because no matter how you win in advance, if you're doing it the right way, and to be able to successfully do it over and over again, that means somebody is doing something right somewhere. That means if that coach was able to get that student athlete to perform well on that day or on that series of times, that coach, that athlete deserves or have earned that spot of, hey, you did it and you accomplished it. Because track and field, and I always tell people, is one of the most physical and mentally sports that you can get involved in because it's you against everything and everybody else. It's the one sport, if me and you teammates and we line up that day, I got to give you the business. My teammate got to get the business. I may advance on and you may be sitting at home. It's you against every effort. If it's raining, if it's cold, if it's hot, no matter what it is, it's you against everything else. When the gun goes off, there's no timeout, there's no halftime, there's no substitution. And you imagine a person that starts in the summer training, come preseason training, and you get to the conference and NCAA regionals and nationals, and everything that you work on, you got to perfect it in 10 point or 9 point something seconds. Or if you're running an 800, you have 2 laps to get it right. And it's the person who's that best that day. And you have to make sure that you know what you know, and it's you against everything and everybody else. And you have to be prepared for that. And coaches do a lot to get those athletes, and to prepare those athletes do a lot to prepare, and it's figuring it out.
Right. Well, it like you said, everything comes down to seconds or inches a lot of times. And so, and then, I've seen those instances too, where athletes came in ranked number 1, and for whatever reason, in the finals, they false start. That's it.
We've seen that. And when you have an athlete that false start, as a coach, you ready to go take them out behind the shed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But you gotta say you gotta let it go, and hopefully there's another event that you can compete in and so forth. But you know that goes with the territory. And I tell people, and you know, we are both involved in this track and field world. I tell people all the time, what used to be fast or used to be far, it's not fast and far anymore. I mean, you look at some of the. I give you an example. In the men 4x4, a 38.7 did not make the finals in the 4x1. 302, maybe a 301 was the last time in the 4x4. And you look at some of the women times, what was needed to be ran to make the finals. You know, I jokingly said, but I was serious, like, man, I'm going to find me something else to do. I said, because the way these young people running, it's hard for me to keep up. I said, it keeps you going back to the drawing board. Mm-hmm. It really, really does, because, you know, what used to be fast, just not fast anymore. I had a young lady who ran a very good time in the 800 and trained really hard in the season to run that time with the expectation of making the NCAA regionals and end up sitting at home because it was just that fast of the year. Now, if we were in the West, she would have got in, but her time and her PR have her sitting at home this year. And in most years, would have made it in. That's just how fast it is now.
So, and this is not a question I normally ask, but I'm going to ask it this time. As as a coach, my philosophy had evolved to the point where we did everything during practice, throughout the week or whatever. Whenever we had practice, that's when all the preparation went in. And that way, by the time we went to the meet, I'm not talking to you about your event, because you know what you have to do, because I prepared you, during practice. In fact, you should be if you see your teammate and both of you in the same race, and he's not doing what I told you to do or what I taught you to do to prepare, then you get on your teammate and remind him, hey, we're supposed to be doing this. And most of my athletes took to that on the middle school and high school side. And so on the collegiate side, I coached a year and a half on the collegiate side. And I think for the most part, the coaches were the same way. The ones who I worked with, they were like that. What's your philosophy on that?
On the collegiate level, and even probably on the high school level, we are, and I can say for my staff, I don't know what other people do, but I am surrounded by other coaches. There are certain standards that are expected of our student athletes when we go to competition. Depending on the event, we are in that area when they're warming up, and they know what their warm-ups are. We don't get heavily involved into the warm-up, but if it's like certain skilled events where they need to come out of the blocks for the hurdles or for the 100 and things like that, there are some instructional things that go on. Even all the way up to some of the middle distance races, I don't be around a lot for the warm-up. But one thing that I do, I check wind, call me a nerd, but I check the humidity. I walk the track. I try to evaluate as much elements of that particular situation that day, especially if it's a championship situation, to have them prepared to run their best times. Or if it's a meet where we need to run a certain time or we're working on something that day, I would give some instructional things on what to do. If the wind is high in a certain area of the track, I may pull them to the side and say, hey, make this adjustment to the race. I give you an example where I critique myself when I did not give specific instructions to an athlete on what to do based off of the wind, where we was competing in a meet where it was one of those high performing meets where there was a certain expectation. And as soon as the race started, I could tell other coaches had made adjustments and I didn't tell my athlete to make the adjustment, which ultimately the athlete didn't have her best race that day. Now, when it got ready for the guy to get ready to run his race, I made the adjustment and he PR'd. So that is when the communication is key, being in tune with everything that's going on with the surrounding parts of it. So, some athletes don't say anything to their coaches. I mean, some coaches don't say anything to their athletes, which is, if that's the way it's set up, I do believe that there's things that adjustments need to be made. Coaches and athletes need to have that open communication and be able to feel comfortable enough to say, hey, do this and do that. But they should also be disciplined enough. If that coach is not fair, you've been taught well enough to make those adjustments. I have athletes, and my assistant coach have athletes. It's not a lot they have to say to coach. And then you got those special babies. You kind of like, hey, you come over here with me till you get up to that point. I got one or two, man. Hey, listen, I wonder about something. So I think everybody got one or two of those on the team. You got to say, yeah, you got to ask them a couple of questions before they go out there.
Definitely.
All of them not gonna be like the majority, but you're gonna have those few where you got to keep them attached to the hip at all times.
Right. Well, yeah, certain people don't have that particular focus that you would wish they would have. So yeah.
And if it's one of those situations where I know, or me and one of my staff, if they're gonna be busy doing other things, we have prepared them for it. They'll get a message in the group about these are the series of things that need to be done, or if it's a certain meet and we already give them the time schedule, where to be at what times and what series of that warm up, and when they need to be at the training table to get whatever pre-race and all of that stuff. We go through that in our team meetings the night before, but we also have conversation the day of as well. Yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, yes. I mean, that was a perfect answer. And like I said, that's one of the questions I should have probably been asking, but you're the first one I've gotten to ask that question to. So thank you very much for your answer. Definitely appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm big on that, man. Communicating if need be before races, because just knowing where the wind is at, even the type of track that I'm racing on. Again, it's if the type of track you're racing on, whether track has the most give, runways, where you go compete at is important. That I look at, where I know there are certain events that's going to yield good time or good returns on the jumps or the balls or the sprints. And so you have those conversations with them, and they understand, hey, this is what this meet is in place for. Here's the expectation, and this is what you need to do, because all of the turns are not going to be the same. It might be some tight turns, it may be wide turns, and they need to know that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's important to have that open line of communication and walking them through it in the pre-meet or the day before or the day of, so that they know exactly what it is and what the expectation is.
Right. Okay. All right. Like I said, I definitely appreciate that, because like you said, different coaches have different philosophies on that. I think part of the reason that mine's evolved that way was because I was also an official, and so we would always have, at least in the state of Kentucky, on the high school side, we would always have coaches meeting by the high school athletic association, where they would explain the new rules and all this, that, and the other. And so I went through all that, where they banned electronics, they banned this, they banned that. You can't walk over here, you can't do this, you can't do that. And all of it had to do with communication.
Think about this. You've been officiating. When you go to the high performance meets, or like conference championships or regionals or nationals, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even just regular meets, there's a coaching box
Mm-hmm.
for the jumps, throws, and all of that, right?
Right.
And the coaches are coaching.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and they can coach during the course of that event because they got so many attempts, right?
Mm-hmm.
When the gun shoot goes off, and everything from the 800 down, a whole lot. You can talk to them about a mile. You may be able to throw a nugget out there every now and then, or you definitely can throw nuggets doing a 10,000, right?
Right.
But if you ever go back to the warm up area, it's a lot of coaching going on back in that warm up area. When you go to NCAA regional, national, or conference championship, most of the time the coaches don't even get a chance to see the race because if they got multiple athletes getting ready, they're either watching the monitor, to see what the results are popping up. Like the indoor championship, even at the CrossFlex, I missed a portion of the meet because I'm back there warming people up, getting them ready, making sure they're going through their series of drills because we know the expectation. And I'm waiting on the prelim times to pop up on the screen because I don't get a chance to see it at regionals, or national. Sometimes you don't get a chance to see the races because you're still in the back or at the warm-up field seeing that. So that's why that communication and coaches are still working directly with those athletes during that warm-up time, and because you want to make every adjustment or every cue that they're prepared for before they go out. Because once that gun shoot goes off, there's no more coaching you can do for them at that point. But you got to be in that warm-up area, coaching them up or making whatever adjustments back there. So I hope that helps because I know when I was young coaching, hell, I was missing some of the warm-up because I'm trying to watch the meet. If I got to stay out there and watch the meet, I'm not coaching. Because I need to be in the warm-up area, getting them ready.
Right. Right. Okay. Yeah, that's it. That was a terrific answer. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate it. And hopefully the ones watching and listening to this interview or to this chat will learn something from that.
Right.
So definitely hoping that happens. So and what honors did you receive this year?
I received men and women indoor SWAC Coach of the Year. Also, I received men indoor SWAC Coach of the Year. Was nominated and a finalist for the South NCAA Coach of the Year as well. Ultimately, someone else won that award, but anytime that someone sees enough of you to put your name on the ballot, I'm very grateful and thankful for that. My assistant coach, he was also a nominee and a finalist for the South Region Assistant Coach of the Year. So that was a blessing within itself. So those are some of the top awards that you want to be able to accomplish. We had of course, we had first team All-Americans as well. We had some honorable mention All-Americans in the 4x4. We're going to have some academic All-Americans that should be coming out within weeks. We had several accolades throughout this conference that was received, by myself or athletes. So, anytime somebody thinks enough of you to mention your name or one of your assistants or one of your players, I pay homage to that because there are a lot of other people names that could have been mentioned. And so, I know you asked about me, but, this is a team effort down here. One person can't do it alone. We have an amazing athletic director, Dr. Cable, Dr. Jason Cable, who supports the vision. Our president supports the vision because a lot of times, due to resource and funding, HBCU may seem like they're falling to the back of the pack. Or is our budget bubbling over with money? No, but we have been resourceful in doing the thing that needs to be done to perform at a major level. And I'm grateful for our AD because he sees that vision. He asks me what is it that we need? And he's going to try to get as much of that as possible, from the nutrition to sports performance, physiotherapy, massage therapy, sports medicine, putting us at the right places at the right times, competing, and the mental and physical health of our athletes is at the forefront at all times. And that's not every day that you could see that from institutions with limited resources.
Okay. All right. Well, you actually answered a question I was going to ask later, so thank you. I really appreciate that. I can skip that question. But what do you look for in your prospects, and can you tell us about some of your current signees?
What we look for in our prospect, we look at where do they fit in within the program, where do they fit in within the conference, where do they fit in regionally, and how can we get them to a national level. So we look at it in those different type of tiers. So that's how we recruit them, and we place them in that position and say, okay, this is where you will be ranked within the team. This is where you will be within the conference. This is where you will be in the regionals. This is where you will be nationally, because everybody wants a scholarship. Everybody wants to be given a lot of money, but we have to do some real conversation and some reality checks sometimes and say, hey, this is where we are, and this is the expectation. And if you don't get any better, could I be okay with that? Can we be okay with that? One thing I try to stay away from signing people with the hopes of them getting better, and offering something monetarily or figuratively with the hopes of them getting better. I want to meet them where they are and say, this is where you are in the recruiting process and in the scholarship process. And this is what we have available based off of what is being done. So I think that for me, the smartest way to start, because what happens is when that athlete is not meeting the expectation, now you got to have some tough conversations, because you brought an athlete in based off hoping that they met something. So I try to work away, and if they don't get any better, would I be okay with it, and can I live with that, and can that athlete live with that? Because everybody's not going to make it to regionals. Everybody's not going to make it to national. Everybody's not be a conference champion, but what you contributed academically and athletically. And so that's basically how we recruited this year. We're still trying to find some key pieces, and a couple of those pieces we did put in, but I am one of those coaches where I'd rather wait and then sign out of desperation, because now, with the transfer portal, I'd rather have somebody get better, and never want athletes to leave. I'd rather have somebody get better because we've done a good job coaching, and go into the portal, then have somebody have to go into the portal because they couldn't make it here. And I know, because everybody knows the transfer portal is out there now, and the transfer portal is cutthroat. There's no love in the game. It's limited loyalty nowadays, and so I would rather have it. I don't ever want a kid to transfer. I want them to stay with us all 4 years. But I know we live in a world now where, if you run them one extra lap, they're ready to go in the portal. We don't have a lot of issues with that here, but it's just the reality of it. And I'd rather have, because they got better and have choices, than them to be here and we're not, and they're no longer our choice, if that makes sense.
Right. Okay. Definitely makes sense. And that was one of the things that I appreciated the most about being given the opportunity to coach on the collegiate level at a Power 5, was I learned the recruiting process. And a lot of misperceptions that I had as a high school coach, that went out the door. And I was able to actually start, I was actually teaching at conferences on recruiting for not just the NCAA, but also the NAIA, the USCAA, the NCCAA, I was doing those particular sessions and explaining to high school coaches, the difference, and maybe even though your athlete might have been regional champ all these years, but this might have been why he or she didn't get signed.
Right.
Maybe you aren't looking at the right program for them. You were shooting for this program where you should have been shooting for this other program, because there's plenty, on different levels. The one thing I tell everybody, if you're fast, you're fast, no matter where you're at. Carmelita Jeter will tell you that.
Mm-hmm.
If you're fast, you're fast. They'll find you.
I agree. I agree. And it takes some coaching along with that. But if you have that talent, and somebody coaching you, people will find you. The cameras will find you, and all of that would happen. And here's one of the biggest things people often miss in understanding the complete scope of recruiting. And we're Division I, so I can't dive off into what Division II or Division III does, but Division I men, the max scholarship you have is 12.6. That's it. To make a competition count, you have to have 14 bodies. You still can't give everybody a pool because you only have 12.6. If you want a roster, you got to break that 12.6 up a lot of different ways. And so sometimes coaches miss that. And the more successful a program is, the smaller the scholarship's probably going to get, because everybody want a piece of that program or that coach or that event, and there's only so much scholarship that can go around.
Right.
And so you have to look at that. And some event groups, a lot of kids either going to get very minimum or they're going to have to walk home, no matter how good they are, because those schools are just not offering money for those events. So I tell athletes, do your research. I tell coaches, do your research. Do you want to be at a name, or do you want to be somewhere where you can be coached and get as much school paid for as possible? Because again, it goes back to that top 48, that top 24, and that top 12. Only so many people going to get in. They're going to make it to those levels, and only a very fraction of those people are going to sign a pro contract, and only a small fraction of those people are going to make the type of money where you can retire when you're done. So my suggestion is get as much money as you can, somewhere where somebody's going to love on you, have some fun with the sport, and get your degree.
Right. Well, tell us about Alabama State University. What are some of the major programs there, and what majors do your athletes tend to take?
Alabama State is historically an educational institution, but we have multiple degrees where students have obtained if they want to go into the medical profession, like biology, pre-med, biology. We have physical therapy as a doctoral program, but there's classes that they can take undergrad to get ready to go into physical therapy, occupational therapy, physical education, secondary, elementary. We have forensic science, criminal justice. Our business department is top notch, where they can go into accounting, computer science, computer information, whatever it is that they want to do. One thing that and we also have one of those majors where most people know about, where you have interdisciplinary studies, where you may not really know what you want to do, but you can put some stuff together, create your curriculum that's going to set you up for graduate school or whatever it is that you may want to do once you graduate. One of the things about it is education is so broad now. To most programs, a lot of the profession, we're going to have a post grad degree when they graduate from college. So we try to set them up for that. But that if they're in a major where they can prepare to go into the workforce soon as they graduate, I am a huge proponent or supporter of internships during the summertime. I want my student athletes to get away from Alabama State, sign up for these internships so that you make yourself marketable once you leave here. And I mentioned it earlier, despite all of the championships won, one of my biggest flex as a coach is they are getting degrees. That outplays any championship than we ever won. I'm huge on education and building something successful for them once they're done running, because when they come back for games and stuff, I want them to be proud of the legacy of the academic and athletic history that they left here at this great institution.
Okay. How do you deal with the mental aspect for your athletes and coaching staff?
Man, mental health is huge. It is probably one of those top tier things for me, my staff, and the athletes. This sport is challenging. Like I said, it's a you against everything and everybody else. And I mean, I think sometimes, and I broke this down to our compliance staff one day and our academic council. I said, I want you to think about it. I said, a lot of our athletes come in wanting to talk or just want to speak with different people. I said, you got to think about it. Every person has an individual demand on them. And that's a lot. And everybody can't handle that demand 365 days of the year. You think about it, you've been a track coach, right? Mm-hmm. The physical and mental demand on you as a coach, where you may have 15 or 20 athletes in your group that has 15 or 20 different issues or ways to get them the same way, direction down or around a track. Mm-hmm. And you got to figure that out, and how emotionally drained you are as a coach. Because if you coached before, you've left practice emotionally and physically drained. Mm-hmm. And now when it's time to race, that anxiety that you have as a coach, hoping that you got it right, and hoping that that student athlete trusted you enough that they can execute that training plan and put it into play. So now, flip that back over to the student athlete. The same emotion and anxiety and physical demands that they were under, that we were under, they physically doing it too. And then they got relationships, they got academic things they got to get done, because our person, you got to stay eligible. Mm-hmm. Did you go to study hall? Leave that boy alone. Leave that girl alone. Put up your phone. Or grandma might be in a hospital. The dog's sick, and everybody want to feel special. Mm-hmm. So that's a lot. So it's important to me that I take time and I remind them how important mental health is. If an athlete come to practice one day and I'm standing there and I can tell something's not right, I'll pull them to the side. I say, you know what? Take your mental health day. Mm-hmm. Now I need to take my own advice sometimes. I'm not that good at that, but it's different because I am the leader of this organization. And my wife, she does a good job at times. So maybe you need to shut it down. Put your phone up. You can't be everything for everybody, because if you tap out, who they gonna call on? They can't lean on you. And like I said, you've been a coach, and you know those feelings, and those days where, as a coach, some days you just want to stay in bed. Mm-hmm. But you got practice, and even when you say you're gonna take off, the phone's still gonna ring, and if you're not there, they want to know, Coach, where you at? Mm-hmm. And so mental health is important. And one thing about my staff, if they're married, they have children, I'm big on, hey, go out to eat with your family, hey, take a day off. Because mental health is important, because if the home life is not functioning well, the likelihood of being successful on the job decreases. So I want them to go on vacation. I want them to take some days off. I tell them, go get lost. Even during those times of the year in the fall, maybe on Wednesday, it's Mental Health Wednesday, and I'll say, hey, take the day off. Tell the athletes take the day off. Tell the coaches to go home early. don't call my phone, and I'm not answering. And I'm not going to call you. If there's anything you need to do, go get your body taken care of. So that's very important to me and my staff.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Definitely appreciate that. Now, who were the biggest influences in your career?
There's a couple. My parents and my brother that is deceased. Just where I am today, my humble beginnings coming out of a little place called Shannon, Mississippi. Um, Being from a place where being an Afro American male, the likelihood of you succeeding was more on not succeeding than succeeding. The standard was getting out of high school, getting a factory job, and when I say that, it's nothing wrong, and it's nothing wrong with working in a factory, and these are the people who provide us with so many resources today. But that was the norm in that area, and that was part of the expectation, and that's what I did in the summer, my first year in college. But they instilled in me a determination, a drive to be better. Because my mom and dad, I saw how hard they worked, and my oldest brother, who passed away, was the first one to go to college. He went back to State University, and he just told me so much about college. He would pick me up and take me down, and our parents would take us to the HBCU football games at Jackson State, and we had this rivalry between Alcorn and Jackson State, and there was a couple of mentors, and they said, man, you should go to college, and so that is what pushed me to be who I am today. Right before my brother had his accident, his senior year at Jackson State, he pulled me to the side, and I was being a knucklehead my senior year of high school, and I was headed down that back path. And my brother came home from Jackson State, and he sat me down like a true big brother and talked to me about life, about dating, about, college. It's like it was his final, like, hey, let me pull you to the side because, I didn't know God had other plans for his life. And I still take with that conversation that we had that night before he headed back to Jackson State and got into the car accident. And I took those values that he gave me and the talk and the things my dad and my mom taught me, and it's just made me who I am today. And Coach Horace Crump gave me a chance at Alabama State University when nobody knew who I was, when nobody else gave me a chance. He took a little country boy out of Shannon, Mississippi, with a funny accent, with country grammar and all that stuff, and gave me a chance. And out of that chance, have turned into being one of the winningest coach in SWAC history, NCAA history, and seeing so many young people to graduate and go on and start families and start successful careers. And it's truly a blessing. And I remain humble because any of this stuff can be taken away at a moment's notice. And so that's why I am who I am today. That's why I'm always reaching over that fence to pull somebody up. That's why I'm always, once they get over that fence, it's kind of giving them a push to help accelerate them into success. Because I was telling one of my coaches yesterday, there's enough room at the table for all of us to eat. We're better working together than working against each other. And that's so important to me. And so that's kind of how I am and where I got to today. If it weren't for those people, those are the people who have put that umbrella over my life with the covering of God Almighty.
Okay. Well, this is the point as we get ready to wind down, that we allow you to give shout outs to anyone you want to recognize.
All right. Well, if that's the case, I want to give a shout out to you for having me on today. This has probably been one of the most laid back interviews I've done, and I appreciate you having me on. And my prayers that somebody learned something from this. But I want to give a shout out to my wife, who helped me hold it down through the ups and downs of this business and helped me navigate through life. I have my baby sitting here with me. Come on, girl, let's sit aside. This is my baby, my daughter. Send a shout out to her, Miss Paige. That's my road dog. She right with me. And so I just want to give a shout out to Alabama State University as a whole, for giving me an opportunity and a chance to serve as an ambassador for this university. And I want to give a shout out to my staff, Coach Turner, Coach Snap, Coach Kiki, and my throws coach, who comes in and volunteer to help Coach Caesar. So just a shout out to those people who make it happen in the support staff, sports medicine. So, and I'm so grateful and humble. If the good Lord never, ever blesses us with another championship, 58 times is more than I ever thought I would have been able to be blessed with in this coaching career. Gravity, what goes up must come down. The Lord, when he threw it up, he just let it stay up for a little while. And I'm grateful for that. So shout out to God, my Savior, Jesus Christ.
Okay. Well, thank you, Coach Beane, for participating in this chat. And we hope that you and your program continue to succeed, and we will follow your developments. And we want to thank you, our audience, for watching and listening to this episode of Chat with HBCU Champions. Please visit ricefamegroup.org for more information on replays and more HBCU information. And please have a blessed week.
Yeah. Now I'm talking about young shakes. Chicago 2 representatives. Just change. And this for my city.
Hey, I do it for my city. I don't plan on going down. If he think I'm going down, then he gon' first round. For my city, I ain't never been a jumpin'. If he thinking I'm a jump, watch him get his head lump. For my city, I don't plan on going down. If he think I'm going down, then he gon' first round. For my city, I ain't never been a jumpin'. If he thinking I'm a jump, watch him get his head lump. For my city, cause I feel like I love her so much, like I owe her so much for supplying her touch. I will always respect her, I will never neglect her. Bet you hear her naming like every one of my records. No, I'm not stunting, ain't no future in your frontin', right? Gotta get this money, watch me get it all night. Planet flying top flight, higher than space stations. That's why I gotta grind, cause I need it and I hate waiting.